President Trump cementing the U.S. relationship with Saudi Arabia with a major military deal.
This landmark agreement includes the announcement of a $110 billion Saudi-funded defense purchase. And we will be sure to help our Saudi friends to get a good deal from our great American defense companies, the greatest anywhere in the world.
The arms transaction intended to bolster national security in Saudi Arabia, as well as the kingdom's ability to combat terrorism. However, it's causing concern for another key U.S. ally, Israel, which also happens to be the president's next stop on his international tour. Israeli cabinet member Yuval Steinitz writing, "Hundreds of millions of dollars in arms deals is something we need to get an explanation for. Saudi Arabia is a hostile country, and we need to ensure Israel's qualitative military edge is maintained." Joining me now is Dr. Ariel Cohen, Senior Fellow at the Atlantic Council and leading expert in Russia, Eurasia, Eastern Europe, and the Middle East policies. Doctor, thanks for being with us.
Pleasure.
This has been described as the largest single arms deal in American history. Why now, and why the Saudis?
Well, this is vintage Donald Trump. He thinks big. Just think about this trip that he is on, visiting the key countries of the three monotheistic religions. Saudi Arabia, the land of two mosques, Jerusalem for Judaism, and the Vatican. He is building a huge coalition to fight radical Islamist terrorism, and it looks like Saudi Arabia is eagerly jumping on that bandwagon. And in exchange, they're going to buy lots and lots of American arms. In fact, it's not just $100 billion this year, it is additional $350 billion over 10 years, together almost $500 billion,
right,
and a lot of jobs. So Trump is bringing bacon back home, looks good, drives attention away from the Russian investigation. So overall, win-win-win.
But creating some choppy waters ahead for the president, because many Israeli officials are voicing concern over this arms deal, calling it troubling. As we heard, one called it Saudi Arabia a hostile country, and saying that the Jewish state needs to maintain a military edge. And now they have this happening not far from their border.
Indeed, and the other long-term threat, if, God forbid, Saudi Arabia ever follows the path of Iran and the regime turns and a new anti-Western, anti-American regime comes to power, all these hundreds of billions of dollars worth of equipment may fall into the wrong hands. So this is something that needs to be on the back of the Saudi officials' mind and of the United States.
It wouldn't be the first time that U.S. arms fell into the wrong hands, but is that something that you see on the horizon in Saudi Arabia? Not
immediately, not at all immediately. In fact, I think what President Trump is doing is trying to put more burden sharing on our Arab allies, saying, you get these people off the street, and as he said, off this planet, so you put more Arab and Islamic ownership on the war on terror. And a very important aspect of this trip is buttressing the coalition against Iran. If I was an Iranian leader today, I would be very nervous, because hundreds of billions of dollars of American weapons go to Saudi Arabia, to Qatar, to Bahrain. So he is building this coalition, and then he goes and talks to the Israelis. In fact, I totally understand Israeli concern, but at the same time, the relationship between the Gulf states, including Saudi Arabia and Israel, are better than ever before.
The president walking a fine line here between near neighbors who clearly do not love each other.
Yes, but on the other hand, in the Middle East, as in many other places, it's who are you friends against? And today, Israel and the Sunni Arab states are friends against Iran, because Iran is spreading its arch of instability from Tehran to Iraq, to Syria, to the Mediterranean.
You mentioned the $300 billion over 10 years. The $110 billion up front includes tanks and warships and helicopters and far more. What do you see the Saudis using all this equipment for?
A lot of this equipment is not against ISIS. You don't need a THAAD, high-altitude missile defense against ISIS, but you do need it against Iran. So I see this big package mostly aimed at the defense of Saudi Arabia against the Islamic Republic of Iran, but also fighting a war in Yemen, for example. The Saudis are kind of stuck with that.
Dr. Cohen, the president made it clear that he was not in Riyadh to lecture the Saudis, certainly not on human rights policies, but to advance the safety and security of Americans and defeat terrorism around the globe and build this coalition. How do you think that will play with the Israelis and with the Palestinians, who the president will be meeting with?
Israelis are as realpolitik as they come because they live in a very tough neighborhood. They're not about to worry about human rights. It's more a domestic issue for us because a lot of people in this country, both Republican and Democrat, are going to attack the Trump administration and particularly the President and Secretary Tillerson for explicitly stating that human rights are not important. This is a realpolitik as much as we saw it maybe since Richard Nixon.
It's an aggressive... I'm sorry.
But at the same time, the proof of the pudding is eating. If we are successful in building this coalition and wiping off the map the radical Islamist terrorist organizations such as ISIS and Al-Qaeda, it would be a huge success.
Yeah, and an aggressive agenda, certainly. But that agenda continues with the Israelis and the Palestinians. I know this has been said many times in the past. What do you think the likelihood is of a peace deal?
I am a pessimist on the Israeli-Palestinian issue. I'm a cautious optimist on a broader Arab-Israeli issue. It looks like the Egyptians, the Jordanians, the people from the Gulf, including Saudi Arabia, are talking to the Israelis. A lot of it's under the table. Some of it is in the open. With the Palestinians, I hate to say it, the Israeli-Palestinian conflict that is lasting now for 120 years is a graveyard of diplomacy. Trump would be the most unusual person to solve it. Many tried, Jimmy Carter, Bill Clinton, George W. Bush. Everybody failed so far.
Yeah,
but Trump is thinking big.
Maybe that's what they need. Maybe they need the unusual to solve this.
But it will not, mark my words, it will not be resolved if the United States is not recognizing Israeli rights in Jerusalem, recognizing Jerusalem as a capital, recognizing the Western Wall as a part of Israel. That is not going to fly.
Much to watch tomorrow. Dr. Ariel Cohen, thanks very much.